Hey, everybody, and welcome to Adapter Parish episode 112, Bedazzled. Before we sell our souls, let's talk about our next episode. This one's definitely been in the been a long time coming column, and we're pretty excited about it. In 1881, Johanna Spyri published her book, Heidi, about a little girl who goes to live with her grandfather in the Swiss Alps. A true classic, if ever there was one. Our original plan was to dedicate an episode to Heidi, but turns out there's a lot more to talk about than we anticipated. We'll be spending our next 2 episodes talking about her, the original novel, and a dozen screen adaptations released from 1937 to today. Shirley Temple is only the beginning of the story, folks. Part 1 will be out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, March 15th, with Part 2 following on March 29th. We can't wait to share them with you. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 112, Bedazzled. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari Lipshaw, and today we will be discussing the movie Bedazzled.
And the book it was based on, right?
Nope, no book.
And the TV show that
Nope.
was made of it?
Nope.
The 12-part miniseries?
Nope, 2 movies. We're getting in, we're getting out.
2 movies in and out?
In and out.
What kind of deal with the devil did you make?
I made a deal about having a shorter episode that we did not have to do as much work for as some of our other ones.
Literally sold my soul for a shorter episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
And I do not have a back of the box ready, so can you vamp for a second?
I just want to say, while we're waiting, I don't know if this is a hot take. Is a hot take something that everybody feels that way?
No, a
and
hot
it's
take.
like a joke that it's ironic because it's sort of something that everybody's saying.
I mean, it depends on how you're saying it. Like, if it is actually a hot take, you can call it a hot take.
This is not actually a hot take. The Sex and the City reboot, and just like that, was not very good. I'm sorry. I know some fine people worked on it, and some people I admire worked on it. And I think the thing that a lot of people forgot was that the original series, Sex and the City, was not very good. So it's not like they had a gem to work with. Not to say that it wasn't enjoyable, because it was, and I watched the whole thing. But I feel like there may be some people out there that were like, I'm going to just break out my old Sex and the City DVDs. This has spurred my interest in Sex and the City, and I'm going to get that big case, that big box set that I bought, the big pink box set in the plexiglass, and do a rewatch. And they put in the first DVD, and they were like, oh, I forgot this is not that good. Anyway, this is all to say that on the Sex and the City reboot, Carrie now has a podcast. That's like the thing. It's not her sex column anymore. Now it's a podcast that she's doing with other people. And I think either the writers or the producers or someone didn't quite understand what a podcast is.
Not like us.
I mean, everyone I know that has a podcast,
Which is a lot of people.
they just do here's the deal. All podcasts are pre-recorded. There's no podcast that's live, like Frasier Crane on the radio, with people calling in live. But it
I'm not going to say there aren't any, but yes, you're right. That's
how could
not
it be
generally
live?
how it's done.
I guess maybe you could do a live show and record it, and then the recording that gets broadcasted out in your podcast feed, in your RSS, is the podcast.
Yes.
Sure, you could do that. It just seemed to me that there was an implication that so to record her podcast, she had to go down to the studio, which I guess if you're doing a really well-funded podcast and you are a celebrity, maybe you would go to a studio, maybe, because it was a big deal when she had her surgery, obviously, that she was recording from home. But there did seem to be the implication that they were live, that they were on the air, and they were getting real-time reactions from people who were calling in or calling in to the station.
So what you're saying is, if I could ask a question.
Yeah.
What you're saying is you know that everyone has problems with this show.
Yeah.
What you're saying is you share those problems and have a big one of your own.
That's correct. Yeah. I share all the problems. The Miranda storyline was nonsense. I admire Sara Ramirez greatly, and I wish that they had been done a better deal by this show for the character that they played, because that storyline fucking sucked. But the thing with the podcast just bemused me because I was just not sure if they had made a deliberate choice to be kind of like unrealistic and extra glamorous, because like podcasting is apparently very glamorous, or if they genuinely did not understand what a podcast is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I mean, it's a keyword.
Yeah.
Like it's a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a hashtag.
Yeah, I know.
That makes sense.
I don't know how much of this is going to make it. I really was just kind of talking to cover some, as dead air, because you have dead air in podcasting, because it's live.
You're listening to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. Thank you for joining us.
Weather on the 8s, traffic on the 2s.
No, I'm like super torn right now.
Yeah.
Because part of me wants to do our show. And I was trying to find a back of the box for Bedazzled. By the way, okay, so this is sidebar upon sidebar. While I was looking for a back of the box on Bedazzled, I found like the Amazon listing, and there was no description for what it was, but there was a review, like a user review with the title, because when you do user reviews, you title your review.
Yeah.
And the title was Life in the Fast Lane.
Oh, no.
And it's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Oh, no.
And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's funny for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I do want to talk about Bedazzled because that's what we're here to talk about. Just 2 movies. But there's this big part of me that just feels very validated by everything you're saying about Sex and the City. Because I was never the type of person that would be like, oh, you're talking about Sex and the City? Let me explain to you why it's actually terrible.
Yeah.
I kept my opinion to myself.
Yes.
I kept that shit locked down because I knew that no one who enjoyed Sex and the City wanted to hear my shitty opinion. Like, I don't matter. My opinion does not matter in the world of people enjoying Sex and the City. But if anyone ever asked me what my opinion was, I was always very happy to share my opinion, which is that it's not a good show. So it's very validating to hear all of this stuff.
I will say that after the first episode, you did become impassioned about whether or not Carrie should have called an ambulance, and you were in her defense. You were like, you don't know what you would do in a crisis. You don't know.
It just amazes me that every single person that has a problem with what happened, everyone's like, I know exactly what I would do in that situation.
I just like that. Like, that was the thing that made you come to the defense of both the character and the plot that was widely panned.
I don't know. It's like if it's all the same people went to go see a horror movie, and suddenly the big thing and the big trending topic on Twitter for the next 2 weeks was, well, why'd she go upstairs? Why didn't she go out the front door?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Because if they do the thing, then the thing doesn't happen. Now you don't have a thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes characters make decisions that people would make. I don't know. I just think it's not. Do you want to talk about Bedazzled, please?
I think it was just more the writing was like, it would have been so easy to avoid this pitfall, and they made a choice that I think what I'm trying to do is not spoil.
I know what you're trying to do.
The episode 1 review.
Oh, sweetie, I know what you're trying to do.
What am I trying to do?
You're trying to cover for the fact that I asked you to prepare a little bit about Faust before we recorded, and you're procrastinating because you did not do your homework.
I did it.
You did do your homework?
I did. Look, I have written down.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I just didn't think. I think you wanted to avoid talking about Faust.
I'm just saying, like, just have him already dead when she walks into the shower, and then you avoid the whole argument. And
so Bedazzled was a movie in 1967.
But you had to have the last little look into each other's eyes as life slips away from his wet body.
Can we please do this?
Yes,
Can we please? Can we please do this? All our listeners are going to tune into another station.
Don't touch that dial.
This is one of those ones that's been on the list for a really, really long time because I'd never seen either of the Bedazzleds. I was always interested in it because when the 2001 came out, I was 17 years old. And I don't know if you know this about Elizabeth Hurley. Famously very pretty.
Famously.
And I thought, oh, I kind of want to see that. Also, I saw the trailer, and there's this thing in the movie where Brendan Fraser's he doesn't think he could speak Spanish, but then it turns out he can speak Spanish.
It's pretty funny.
And that's like a pretty funny part of the trailer. I kind of want to see this movie. And then, of course, I never did.
Yeah.
And I found out it was actually based on like Dudley Moore, Peter Cook thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this has probably been on our backlog since the show started.
Yep.
When we first sat down and said, let's make a list of all the things we could possibly cover.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Let's do that Bedazzled movie.
Yep. And
And-
every time I said, I don't know what the fuck that is. No one knows what the fuck that is. And when they see it on their podcast playlist, they will delete it without listening to it because I know that I would. So if you're listening, I appreciate you because I suspect you don't know what this is.
I
And
would
if you
feel-
do, I think that's great.
I would feel attacked if I didn't think you were right.
I like to do
Attacking
things.
you with the truth.
I like to sometimes the argument that we have on the show, I think, is sort of the classic one between art and commerce, which is that Jeremy proposes something that I'm sure would be very fun and interesting to do, and I say that has no name recognition and no one will listen to it. And that's just the conversation we've been having for the last however many years.
I mean, I don't think there's any debate about which one of us has a better window into our demographic.
Our core demographic.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that RoboCop didn't get listened to and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is still our lowest download ever.
Yeah, pretty much. I still love doing RoboCop. And that's what this show is.
Yeah.
That's our show. And luckily, this is not our full-time job.
No.
We have other jobs. And that gives us the freedom to do what we want.
Yes.
And the thing we wanted to do was take a little bit of a break.
We just needed a break.
And just watch
That was
2 movies.
Truly. That was it.
Like the stuff that we have coming up, we've got a thing coming up in a few episodes that like I am having a lot of trouble getting through this book.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about it when we finally do the episode. But it is a struggle and I'm mad about it. And the thing that makes me the maddest is that whose idea was it?
Yours.
It was my idea.
And every time you complain about it, I said, let's not do it. I don't want to do it. I haven't even started reading the book because I'm having trouble getting through a different book.
I really want to do it though.
damn
And
it.
so we're doing it. I'm going to muscle my way through.
God damn it.
So Bedazzled.
Okay, we're 12 minutes
This
in.
is going to be an hour and a half of false starts.
No,
And
no,
we're finally
no.
gonna have no
We're doing
time.
it. We're doing it. We're doing it.
So in 1967, there was this movie. Now, this is one of the cool things about this because I got really scared right at the beginning doing just like, because it always starts with we put it on the list and then we forget about it. And then when we're finally getting close to doing it, we go in and we say, okay, now let's actually find out a little bit more about this. And that's usually what ends up happening is I come to you and I say, hey, there's like 2 or 3 more versions that we need to watch.
And one
I'm
is
very
and one
sorry.
is a series that we have to watch 2 seasons of, and one is a 14-episode miniseries, just so you know.
And 1 time out of 5, it's like the worst slog in the world. But I would say 4 times out of 5, it's worth watching.
Sure.
So the thing that happened with this is the first thing I saw when I was looking
And
into
there's a
it
Japanese anime that's
Yeah.
67 episodes.
was those are always fun.
Those are always fun.
I have never once regretted doing that.
Go ahead.
So I start researching Bedazzled, and the first thing I see is based on Faust.
God damn
And I
it.
think, fuck. No, we don't have. Here's the good thing. Oh, here's the thing that makes me really happy.
Not doing it.
Quote unquote, based on Faust. Like loosely inspired by this story of Faust.
Sure.
I would say maybe in the same way that like Oh Brother Where Art Thou was inspired by the Odyssey, in which it kind of wasn't, but then it was a little bit. But what I'm saying is if we would never do Oh Brother Where Art Thou because it's not actually based on the Odyssey.
Right. And we would never do the Odyssey because, it's long.
Exactly. Bedazzled. Do you want to do a back of the box really quick and then we can talk about Faust?
Yeah, do the back of the box. Go ahead.
Stanley is a hapless short order cook who is hopelessly in love with a waitress named Margaret, although she barely knows he's alive. Enter George Spigot, a.k.a. Satan, who grants Stanley, I'm sorry, I don't know why I said it that way, who grants Stanley 7 wishes in order to win Margaret over, but his efforts are hilariously hampered by the 7 deadly sins, including the insatiable Lillian lust.
Wow.
That's it. It's not a great back of the box. All you need to know, dude sells his soul to the devil for 7 wishes. The reason he wants 7 wishes is so that he can get this girl that he works with.
Yeah. I had a AP European history teacher in high school who was kind of a character, and a lot of European history is motivated by fear of the devil. So this actually came up a lot.
Yeah.
And every time he mentioned it, he would be like, Satan. And it was really funny. So that's what I always think of.
Mhm.
Anyway, as you say, loosely based on Faust, which is a classic German tale, loosely based in the sense that, as they say, there are only 38 plots.
Sure. I just want to say really quickly,
Yeah.
I'm going to own this. I don't know shit about Faust.
You're about to learn.
I don't know anything. So I just want you to know at no point will I feel like you're condescending to me if you get super basic with this,
Okay.
because I know nothing about Faust.
So Faust, as far as I could gather from the 2 Wikipedia articles that I skimmed,
Never once will we ever bullshit any of you.
Faust is a legend.
Like a couple of frat boys over here.
Faust, we got called frat boys in our 1-star review. We're not sufficiently reverent to the Bible story of Exodus. Faust is a classic German tale, and it's basically about someone who is successful. So that's, I think, the biggest difference between Faust and Bedazzled is that in Bedazzled it's very specifically this guy is such a sad sack.
I don't know why that tickles me so much.
A successful merchant sells his soul to the devil in exchange for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. I mean, that's the one-line plot, right? So
Sure.
Faust was this German tale, this German legend. It was maybe based on a real guy whose name was Johann Faustus. So there were 3 major works of literature that were the story of Faust, right? So there was Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. That was 1604.
I'd always heard of Faust, and I'd always heard of Dr. Faustus.
Yeah, so
I knew that was Marlowe.
There may or may not have been a real person named Faust in Germany, and that was where this story kind of comes from, who was an alchemist, but potentially was said to have sold his soul to the devil in exchange for knowledge.
Oh, someone told some bullshit about a bullshit artist?
Yeah, but in the 1500s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Then 200 years later, Goethe wrote, I think it's a play, another play called Faust. So that was 1808. And then in 1947, Thomas Mann, also German, wrote a novel called Dr. Faust. So those are the big literary Faustian adaptations. There's also an opera by Berlioz called The Damnation of Faust. That was 1846, and Franz Liszt wrote a Faust symphony in 1857.
This is our Faust episode.
This is
within
our Faust
episode
within
about,
our episode.
Yeah.
There is a Wikipedia page that lists all the adaptations of Faust, however tangential, and I thought it would be interesting just to run through some of them that were on this list.
Yeah.
Murnau, our friend of Nosferatu fame, did a silent version of Faust in 1926.
I'm not surprised. I bet it's great.
There was a movie called Phantom of the Paradise by Brian De Palma in 1974. That's a Faust story.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. There's a Twilight Zone episode about someone who sells their soul to the devil.
Of course.
There's a Wishbone episode.
I mean, there's always a Wishbone episode.
There's the song Bohemian Rhapsody.
I haven't heard of it.
Randy Newman wrote a rock opera called Faust.
Stop it. What?
And the musical.
Wait, what?
And the musical,
He did?
Yes, according to Wikipedia, and
Holy shit!
And the musical "Damn Yankees" is based on Faust.
So basically, anything where anybody sells their soul to the devil is based on Faust.
Yes, although I will say, on this long list of very varied and ever so tangential relationships of these pieces to Faust, Bedazzled was not on the list. So I don't know
insane.
I don't know what to make of that, even a little. Here we are, Faust. That was Faust. Thank you for coming to my Faust talk.
It's ever taken us to start talking about a thing.
All right, Bedazzled.
And I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Bedazzled, let's do it.
Okay, 1967 movie. It was directed by Stanley Donen, and if you know his name, it's because he's done a lot of stuff. He did Funny Face, Charade, Singin' in the Rain, co-directed with Gene Kelly, and he also did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. I think that's only important because Seven Brides for Seven Brothers gets referenced in this movie because when Satan is talking to Stanley, he tells him you get 7 wishes, and he goes, why 7? And he says, well, 7 is a great number. 7 days of the week, 7 sins, 7 brides for 7 brothers. And it's a very funny joke if you know that it was directed by the same director.
Jokes are always funnier when you explain them.
Yeah, that's what I've always said.
Yeah.
The student has become the master.
All right, keep going.
So this is Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, who by this point had already become kind of a famous comedy duo. We talked about Dudley Moore on this show. We talked about Arthur. If you haven't seen Arthur, holy shit, see it. If you haven't listened to our episode, at some point.
Yeah.
You should listen to it at some point.
You should watch the movie, Arthur.
Yeah, we watched the movie first and then listened to the episode at some point. It was really funny that when I was going to rent Bedazzled, like the 2000 version, immediately under it was like, you might also like Russell Brand's Arthur.
We did not like Russell Brand's Arthur.
I kind of liked it. No, I kind of liked it.
Right.
I also didn't.
Yeah.
So Peter Cook wrote this. They both came up with the story. Dudley Moore plays Stanley Moon, and Peter Cook plays the devil, also known as George Spigot.
Yeah.
Eleanor Braun is Margaret Spencer.
Has appeared on the show before.
Yes, she has. She appeared in our Little Princess episode,
Mhm.
and this was great.
And
you
if
know?
we were ever to do a Beatles episode on Beatles movies, she would appear because she was in friggin' Help with the Beatles.
It's just amazing to me. I said this to you when we were watching the movie. It's like, imagine in 1968, she turns to someone says to her, like, "You're an actor. You're an actress, right?" She says, "Who have you worked with?" And she
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, well, I worked with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and the Beatles."
Yeah.
Do you know them?
Yeah.
I'm happy because I think we both had some issues with her in A Little Princess.
Yeah.
Not necessarily her in particular,
No.
but what she was asked to do.
Yes.
She was pretty great in this.
Yeah, she was great.
And I am excited to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen any poster for this or the front of the box or anything, you've seen a picture of Raquel Welch, who appears in this movie for, I would say, a grand total of 4 minutes.
Yeah, like really, truly.
She plays Lust. It's Raquel Welch doing what she does in 1967.
Wearing a bikini.
Being real pretty and wearing a bikini.
Yep.
So I had no idea what to expect with this movie. And it starts, and it is 1967 in a movie.
Yeah, it stylistically, like we've seen a couple of movies that it reminded me of.
Yeah,
It reminded me of The Italian Job.
sure.
It reminded me of we haven't watched this for the show. We could because they did do a remake of it. The movie Alfie, with Michael Caine.
Yeah.
It reminded me of basically every Michael Caine movie from the 60s. It just does that thing where people are talking, it's all ADR,
Yep.
and there's this very tinkling music happening in the back. Like every scene is fully, I'm not going to say orchestrated because it's not an orchestra, but like sort of jazzy music happening behind
sound
all
bed.
of the dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just has this certain tone and feel to it that
But how
like,
many of-
really puts it in a place and a time.
But how many of those movies had that music composed by Dudley Moore and performed by the Dudley Moore Trio?
I mean, apparently just this one.
just this one. That was part of like what we didn't know what to expect because the credits start going and we're like, okay, written by Peter Cook. We
Yeah.
knew that. Based on a story by Peter Cook. Okay, we know that. Music by Dudley Moore.
Yeah, so we thought,
like-
wait, are there songs? Like,
Oh, cool. And turns out, yes, there
it's
are
just
songs.
like a jazzy backing track.
And the music's really good.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. It's pretty great.
fun.
He was very talented. And I kind of fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole listening to the Dudley Moore Trio.
Yeah.
And the best as I can tell, it was they were kind of the real deal.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they were amazing, but like they seem to be kind of the real deal.
Dudley Moore seems to have this thing that I think we've joked about Hugh Laurie having, that he's like, he has it written into his contract that he gets to play the piano and everything.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew this. He's very good at
It's
it.
very good.
So Dudley Moore is our Stanley. He's super, super big sad sack at the beginning because he really likes this lady and he can't talk to her.
They work
and
together at the
he's
hamburger stand.
Nothing and he's nobody. And he's nothing and he's nobody. And I'm just going to keep saying it because they hammer it into you so much that he's nothing and he's nobody.
Yeah.
And then we get this scene that doesn't age very well.
Yeah. There's a suicide attempt that's sort of treated as a joke, which is not good.
And like talking about whether it is or isn't funny, I would say is not a conversation I think we want to get into in
Yeah.
this very light episode.
Yes.
Suffice it to say, tries to hang himself and it doesn't work. And he ends up breaking the pipes above his head that he's hanging from. And so he's got water coming down on him. And then into his tiny little shitty apartment walks the devil, who is
The-
Peter Cook.
Who's a million feet tall.
Well, especially compared to, they've got a real C-3PO and
Yeah.
R2-D2 thing going.
Really
like it
do.
makes
It's
perfect
really-
sense that they're a
It's
duo.
a classic duo.
And then we get, I do think ADR is in some ways kind of the enemy of comedy.
Yeah.
But I think it really speaks to how good Dudley Moore and Peter Cook are that they still make it really funny and really engaging.
Yeah.
Even though the performance we're hearing is separate, like there's this separation
Sure.
between them giving the performance and the performance being captured on film
Yeah.
because they had to record all of it later.
Yeah.
But we get this devil who's super cool, and we get Stanley who's super not, and they just chat for a while. And what we find out is the devil says, "Hey, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you 7 wishes. All you have to do is sell me your soul. That's all you got to do."
Mm-hmm.
And Stanley says, "Okay, well, that sounds fine."
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not much of a debate, right?
Yeah. Like, sure. I don't have anything for me here. Yeah, let's do it.
And he gets his 7 wishes. And then the movie starts.
Yep.
But before the movie starts, is there anything you'd like to there anything you feel like I'm skipping?
No, I mean that's basically it. So basically the structure of the movie is we see each of these 7 wishes, which is sort of like a fantasy wish fulfillment, but that the devil manages to, do in some weird way that was not what Dudley Moore was anticipating. And then in between, we sort of come back to reality where they're able to look down on Margaret and see what she's doing, and there may potentially be this sort of burgeoning basically in the in the timeline that Margaret's living in. Stanley has disappeared. They think he's committed suicide, and this investigator is investigating it and perhaps like hitting on Margaret.
Oh no, he's definitely hitting on
Margaret. He's definitely hitting on Margaret,
and she likes it.
She kind of likes it. So that's it's like these fantasy scenes interspersed with maybe what might potentially be happening back on Earth, but not really, because that's also like an alternate timeline, as we find out.
Best not to think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, my first note here is just they get right to it, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, they do very little to establish anything, and they just jump straight into it.
Well, it's not a long movie, and they do have to get through 7 wishes.
Yeah.
And each of these scenes, I would say, is not short.
Okay, before we go into it, you got your entire sidebar about Sex and the City at the beginning. Can I please get my own sidebar right now? I promise it won't be nearly as long.
Sure.
Okay, so you know the story about the monkey's paw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's bad.
Right? So, like, well, there's that. But the whole idea is, like, you get a wish.
Yeah.
And one of the fingers on the monkey's paw goes down.
Right.
But the whole thing is, you don't really get the thing you wish for. You get the wish, but with an asterisk.
Yeah.
And there's always something that gets taken away from you because of the wish, and
Right.
that's the whole idea with the monkey's paw. Like, I think in like the main story that everyone's ever heard of it, like someone wishes for their dead relative to come back.
Yeah.
And
they come back, but they're still dead.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're just like a shambling corpse.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
I'm familiar with the Simpsons episode version.
Okay. So in the movie Wonder Woman 1984,
Oh boy.
the whole movie is based around I never get to talk about how much I hated this movie, so I'm just going to talk about it now
Oh my God.
for a minute. The whole movie is based around the idea of wishes. Wishes are very, very central to the movie. So one of the things that she wishes for is for her to get Chris Pine back, because she really wants Chris Pine, and she misses him because it's been 40 years since she lost him in the first movie. And they realize that it's that kind of situation. If you wish for something, you get it, but like something gets taken away or there's a catch.
Yeah.
And they bring up the concept of the monkey's paw in it.
Yeah.
But the problem is, at no point in the movie do they explain what the monkey's paw actually is.
They
or
just
how
keep saying monkey's paw, monkey's paw.
Literally, someone tells her about it, and for the rest of the movie, she keeps saying like it's the monkey's paw. But it's not played for a joke. It's played dead serious. At no point in the movie did they do anything that we just did to explain what the monkey's paw actually is.
Okay.
And what the original story was. Someone
Okay.
just says, it's the monkey's paw, and she latches onto it, and it made me so angry.
Okay.
Anyway, back to Bedazzled.
Okay.
So, wish number 1.
Yeah. I'm doing this from memory. I don't know if you wrote it down.
I wrote them all down.
Okay, so wish number 1, he just wishes like, I wish I were smart. I wish I were well educated so I could talk to her.
I can never say the right thing. I never know what to
Yeah.
say, and I never know what to say.
So it's basically this long scene of him they're riding on a bus together. They're clearly on a date.
They go to the zoo.
And he's just
Welsh.
He's
Welsh.
He's Welsh. And he's just talking. He just got lots to say, and he's just talking, and she's into it, right? She's just like, oh, that's so interesting. That's so interesting.
Well, she's just as pretentious as he is.
Yeah,
That's the thing. They both turn into kind of pretentious assholes.
Yeah. Again, it does go on, and then at the end, they're doing this whole thing about like people should just touch each other. Don't you agree? And then he does try to kiss her, and she starts screaming for help. And to get out of any wish,
Yes.
he has to blow a raspberry. So that's fun.
I feel like it's one of those things where you think, oh, I understand the joke because I see Dudley Moore blowing a raspberry, and that is inherently funny.
Yeah.
But then you realize later that it's the setup to a bigger joke.
Yeah.
Because then there's the later wish where he keeps blowing raspberries, and at no point does the devil actually take him out of the
Right.
wish. Because to me, the punchline is Dudley Moore blowing 40 raspberries
Right.
in the course of 7 minutes
So
while he's dressed as a nun.
So basically, this first scene does go on a bit, and he realizes, oh, everything I wish, there's going to be a twist to it, so I need to phrase these wishes in a very, very, very specific manner.
Mhm.
So he kind of realizes, like, well, there's no good, like, me being so great if she's not interested in me. So then his next wish is like, I wish that I were really rich and powerful and that I were married to Margaret and she was very sensual and passionate.
Very physical.
Very physical.
Before you go into that one, can I just say one quick thing about wish number one?
Sure.
Wish number one grabbed me immediately. Like, I thought the movie was funny because Dudley Moore's funny. Peter Cook is super funny. His performance as the devil is so laid back and so cynical.
Yeah.
But very, very subtle. He's hilarious.
Yes.
And of course, we see him throughout the movie doing terrible things to people and, like, just generally messing with the world. But he's so blasé about the whole thing. Like, he's not doing it to hurt people. He's doing it, and we find this out. He's doing it because it's his job.
Right.
Like, literally.
He is literally Lucifer.
Like, yeah.
He got kicked out of heaven. Like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's
and
his job.
One of the things that makes him so interesting is that he loves God.
Yeah.
Just like all the angels do.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I love God. God's great.
Yeah.
This is my job. God made me do this job. The only reason I got put into this job is because I kind of wanted to be God a little bit, and that was a problem.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet, and it makes him a much more interesting devil than I feel like I've seen in most other things, because he's not just evil.
Right.
So it was already kind of funny, like it's a fun movie, but then the scene started, and it's one of those things where I didn't appreciate how beautifully Dudley Moore had created the character of Stanley until he wasn't that character anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of taking him for granted. I was like, oh, Stanley, whatever, this isn't that funny. But then as soon as he was like the very Welsh, sophisticated version of Stanley, it made me appreciate it made me reappreciate Dudley Moore's range as a performer.
Yeah, and I think it really set the scene for the rest of the movie, because I spent a couple of minutes going like, wait, why is he Welsh? What's going on? And then I realized like every one of these little sequences, he's going to be a totally different person.
Yeah.
Doing sort of a different thing. And it was funny. It was good. It was entertaining.
Like it has more of a plot than like Monty Python and the Meaning of Life.
Yeah.
But it's also created for the same reason, which is we're funny people and we want to do sketches.
Yes, it's very episodic, which is why I think something I could say about these sketches is that each of them kind of goes on for a while.
Yeah.
Because I think like they were like, no, we have more funny stuff we want to do. And it didn't necessarily suit the plot of the movie. It was that they wanted to do more funny stuff, which is fine. Whatever. I mean, the movie's not that long.
I feel like the worst thing I can say, because the movie's like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It could have been one of those
could have been
cool
90-minute
movies, and it would have been great. But it wasn't that.
Yeah.
You could have found 15 minutes to cut from it.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff in it that's amazing. So anyway, sorry. Wish number 2, he wants to be rich and powerful and a very physical wife. And poof, he's in a wish.
He's rich and powerful. He has a very physical wife, but she's not being physical with him. She's being physical with her tennis instructor or whatever. Whatever it is.
Piano?
Harp teacher.
Harp teacher.
And
that's
the
what
other
it is.
thing is that Peter Cook as the devil is in like almost all of these as another character. So in this, he's like his friend, and they're just like talking in a very, upper class businessy kind of way.
And I think one of the things that's important to say too is like the way they do the wishes is he's Stanley when he's in the wishes.
Yeah.
Because at any point he could blow a raspberry and get out of it.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is he's always in the wish.
Yes.
They're not doing this thing where he's like, oh, where am I? And who am I? And what's going on?
He's there.
Like, it is reality.
Yes. Like both of the things are totally coexisting. He knows he's Stanley and he knows he can get out of it at any time, but he is this person. It's actually a very accurate representation of what a dream is like.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in a dream, like, you are this person, but sometimes you do have this sense of like, no, I know who I am and I'm dreaming, but I'm in this dream also, and this is also real. Did you want to go through every single one of these?
I mean, we've spent a lot of time on the first 2.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to spend as much time on the other ones, but yeah, I'd like to.
All right,
why don't you run
through them if you have them written down?
So he finally blows a raspberry, gets out of that one. Then he goes to the third wish, which is that he wants her to be in love with him. He wants to be magnetic. He wants to be a pop star. So then we go into this sequence that's very Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
At this point, which was like 3 years before. And so this is where we get 2 songs. I can't remember what the first one is called, but it's like Dudley Moore singing a normal pop song. And everyone in the studio, all the women are just
going crazy, screaming,
crazy
tearing
for
their
him.
hair. Yeah.
Yep. And then, as soon as he's done, Drimble Wedge and the Vegetation get up to do a song called Bedazzled. Peter Cook is the lead singer, and it's this very kind of mod
it's
pop
very, like,
song.
monotone,
yeah,
like weird song.
And the catch in this one is that oh, well, you want to be a pop star? Yeah, she'll be in love with you. But the thing about people who are in love with pop stars is they're just going to be in love with the next pop star,
Right.
too. So then everyone falls in love with the devil, and then he blows a raspberry and gets out of there.
Right.
By the way, this song has been covered like multiple times.
Oh,
it was
boy.
covered by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah, that tracks.
And like it's pretty good.
That tracks.
It's kind of a fun song. Then the fourth wish, this goes back into the reality of them, like of the investigation into where he is.
Yeah.
And they're talking about going to the morgue, and he says, "Man, I wish I was a fly on the wall for that." And we get this extended animated sequence where the devil says, "Oh, well, that's one of your wishes.
Yeah.
So now we're flies on the wall."
They're flies on the wall.
And it's just, it honestly, it's not even part of the whole thing. There's no monkey's paw. The whole thing is just a giant catch.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, to prove that he's to prove that he's the devil, at the very beginning, he said, "What do you wish for?" And he wishes for what, like a
popsicle.
popsicle. And so he says, "Cool." So he takes him down to like the corner store and buys him a popsicle with his own money,
Right.
Because he doesn't have anything. This comes back later.
He gets stuck in a wish, and Peter Cook's like, "No, this was number 7." He's like, "No, this is number 6." He's like, "No, the popsicle was your first wish." He's
Yeah.
like, "God damn it."
Then fifth wish, it's the best one. He says, and I'm sure I'm paraphrasing, but he says, "I want all of it. I want the little house in the country, family, she's cooking dinner, and we are madly in love with each other."
Yeah.
The problem that he finds out is he doesn't specify
Who she's married
who
to.
she's married to him. And so she's married to Peter Cook
Yeah.
in this scenario, and he's the other man, and they are passionately in love with each other. But the problem, do you want me to describe it, or do you want to describe it? 'Cause
Okay.
it's like nothing we say will be this is the funniest scene in the movie.
It's impossible to describe because it's so funny, and I just fear this is really going to fall flat. But basically, we see Dudley Moore and Peter Cook are like best friends. She's Peter Cook's wife. They've got 2 cute little kids. Dudley Moore and Peter Cook come home together, and we it's clear that he's carrying on an affair with his friend's wife. And the joke is that the friend is just the kindest, sweetest. He's so kind and he's so thoughtful. And he's like, "Dear, it's our anniversary. Like, don't cook dinner. Like, sit down, put your feet up, have a glass of wine. Like, my present to you is I'll take care of the kids. I'll cook the dinner tonight. You've been home. You know,
You want to go to that art exhibit?
Yeah,
Both
like,
of you wanted to go to that,
why don't
right?
you both go? Like, drive him home. You'll both go to the art exhibit. I'll put the kids to bed, and you'll have a great time. And that's my present to you." And so they get in the car, and they like park in this field, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is like our opportunity. We can be together."
Well, they can't keep their hands off each other.
They can't keep their hands off each other, and they're making out, but the only thing that they can talk about is Peter Cook and what a wonderful person he is, and he's such a kind husband. And Dudley Moore's like, what? They're both sobbing.
They are making out furiously and sobbing horribly
Because
about
they're-
how much they're hurting.
How much they're
this
hurting him. I
wonderful
can't hurt
man.
him. And Dudley Moore at one point goes, "When I was sick, he brought me soup
Yeah.
that he made."
Okay, so like
It's impossible to describe how funny it is. We were dying.
it goes on for a really long time, and it only gets funnier as it goes.
And the funny thing is about it too, like I actually think it is really clever comedy because part of the tension that's building is, I don't know for anyone else. For me, I find it like uncomfortable when someone's kind of getting taken advantage of, and that's like the butt of a joke.
Mhm.
So like the tension is ratcheting up that this guy is so nice and so sweet and so perfect, and these people are betraying him, and just the sort of like release of tension in the fact that they are acknowledging too that that's what's happening was the thing that made it fun. You know, you're like uncomfortable, but then you're laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
It was quite the journey.
And I have one more note about this scene before we move on. It is weird. It's like 2 in the row now that we have very specific notes about the closed captioning.
Yeah.
Because as we've said before, we have a little kid, and so we watch these with subtitles on because we can't play them super loud. We don't always know what
And
people
my
are saying.
hearing is not great. So
There's that.
there's that.
Blows raspberry while sobbing is
was
one of the
amazing.
greatest closed captions I've ever seen. So that was very good. Then the 6th wish. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he basically says, "I want us both to be very, very moral, but also very in love with each other."
Yeah.
And so what happens? he becomes a nun, and
They're
they are both
both
nuns,
nuns.
deeply in love with each other, but also incredibly moral.
Yeah.
And nothing can ever happen.
Their love can never be.
And this is where we get 15 minutes of him blowing raspberries because he wants out, but he can't get out.
And the funny thing is that when the wish starts, he looks down at himself. He's wearing a nun's habit and immediately blows a raspberry. had the joke been that he just immediately gets transported back, we would have saved 15 minutes and nothing would have been funnier than that beat. Like, I'm not sure that anything that happened in the 15-minute nun sequence, because it goes into this whole weird, bizarre thing of them all like jumping on trampolines. It was just very strange.
I don't know. I was kind of into the trampoline scene.
I'm just saying nothing that happened. I don't think there was any joke that was funnier than the joke of him just looking at himself as a nun, immediately blowing a raspberry and being transported back would have been. I think that would have been a funnier joke.
I'm torn because I agree with you. It would have been incredibly funny.
Yes.
But I also kind of liked the trampolines. I don't even want to explain why there's trampolines. Because
please don't.
We
have to move on.
In context, it makes a lot of sense. So then we get the third act of the movie. He's stuck as a nun, and a thing happens that I didn't expect that I was really happy about. The devil gets some character development.
Yeah.
And the thing we find out throughout the course of the movie is that he and God have a competition, which is to get souls. And what is it? A billion souls? I think it's
10 billion, a billion, something like that.
I think it's a billion.
Yeah.
So he needs to get a billion souls. Whichever one gets first wins. And if he wins, he gets back into heaven, which is all he wants.
Yeah.
Of course, Lucifer wants to get back into heaven. Of course, that's the thing he's always wanted.
Yeah.
And so he gets enough souls. Stanley is one of them. And so when Stanley comes back to, because the devil is operating out of a like basement club establishment,
of course,
yeah,
with all of the sins we didn't even really talk about.
Yeah,
but
all the sins are characters.
All the sins
in
are
it.
characters.
It's a joke that I think never really works that well on the whole.
Yeah.
And I think there's no greater proof than like the remake has issues, but the fact that it cuts all the sins as characters is actually, I don't think that's an issue
completely
with the movie.
Fine. Yeah.
So all the sins are there. Raquel Welch plays Lust. So that's why she's there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know this, Raquel Welch
famously,
in a bikini,
et cetera, et cetera.
Famously always in a bikini. So we get this whole long third act where they're talking. He's like, Stanley, I'm sorry, you're stuck. You're stuck as a nun. That was your last wish. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you your soul back because it's the right thing to do. And I actually have a surplus. I got more than I need. I'm going up to heaven. And so he gives Stanley his soul back and he goes up to heaven. And we get this whole scene where he goes to heaven and he meets St. Peter and he talks to God. And God basically tells him, you did the right thing for Stanley, but you did it for the wrong reasons. So no, you're not coming back.
Yeah.
And he has to go back. And he's like desperately trying to find Stanley to tell him, no, Stanley, give me back your soul so I can give it back to you so I can do the right thing again, but for the right reasons. But he can't get to him in time. So like everything at the end of the movie, it's nice because Stanley's right back to where he started. He's working at the counter of the burger place. And he actually gets up the courage to ask Margaret out. And she says, well, I can't tonight, but I can another night. And he feels pretty good about that because he grew as a person.
Yeah.
And he actually got to ask her.
Yeah.
And the devil's there and can't convince him to sell his soul again and leaves dejected and is angry at God.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie ends.
That's how the movie ends. The good ended happily and the bad unhappily.
And like, what did you like this movie?
It was fun. It was fun to see Dudley Moore. I don't know that I've seen him in a ton of stuff. And Peter Cook, like we saw. There's a Sherlock Holmes that we still haven't done for the part 3 that will never happen.
It will happen. It's going to happen this year.
That is delightful. And I've seen Dudley Moore in Arthur, but it was really fun to see that. I mean, obviously Peter Cook in The Princess Bride, which we just watched again recently.
That's our Valentine's Day movie.
So it was really fun to see the two of them like do what they do. I feel like this is closer to like the classic Dudley Moore and Peter Cook thing than I had seen before. So that was really fun. I always like something that has a structure that's like you're going to do 7 different things. Like that kind of structure for whatever reason appeals to my brain. The tone and style of the movie is just like not totally my thing. Like sort of the swinging 60s movies is just like not my favorite style. But all in all, I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
It is a weird movie, but it is also very, very fun. So then 33 years later,
for some reason,
for some reason, everyone's looking for IP.
Yeah.
Everyone's always looking for IP.
Sure.
And I think it makes perfect sense why this movie got made, because it was remade, directed by Harold Ramis. Yes, Harold Ramis, Ghostbusters, but let's be clear, wrote Animal House, Meatballs, Stripes, co-wrote Ghostbusters, directed Caddyshack, National Lampoon's Vacation, Multiplicity, Analyze This, Analyze That, Groundhog Day, which is a stone cold classic.
Sure.
It makes perfect sense to me that Harold Ramis would direct this because it's, comedy royalty, right?
Yeah.
Dudley Moore and Peter Cook.
Sure.
Also, in the 90s, Harold Ramis got into philosophy. You've got Groundhog Day, which is
like Buddhism, right?
Exactly. And Multiplicity is all about like identity.
Okay.
And this movie is all about like Judeo-Christian theology.
Okay, fair
and
enough.
I can understand why, as he got older, he was like, no, I want to explore these things.
Yeah, I'm
And-
going to die someday.
Yeah.
Which he did do. He did die.
He did. It was really sad.
Yeah.
But like, to be fair, I don't think that I can see that in the movie. He feels to me like a filmmaker who was a little more interested in exploring the theology of the story than Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and Stanley Donen were.
Yeah.
I never really feel like that got into the theology of it.
Sure.
This one is earnest in a way the original one wasn't earnest.
Yeah.
Like, God appears in this movie as a character, and then there's a scene at the end where the devil and God are playing chess, and like there's just something much more earnest about it.
Sure.
I'm not saying that made it good. I'm
right.
just saying
No, I understand.
It was present.
I understand. I will say that we were watching this movie together, and every couple minutes I would make some remark, and Jeremy would be like, "Are you writing this down?" Like he would yell at me to write it down. And I'd be like, "No, it's fine. I'll remember." And he was right to do so because I only have notes for the second half of the movie, and I don't remember anything from the first half of the movie.
Glad you took this seriously.
No, I do remember.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just making a funny.
Okay. Jokes and James.
Jokes and James.
It was written by Harold Ramis, co-written by Larry Gelbart and Peter Tolan. Larry Gelbart.
Funny thing happened on the way to Forum. I was like, how do I know that name? And
Yeah,
you were like, it's
Funny thing happened on the way to Forum. Also co-created MASH.
Yeah, like you do.
It worked on a million sitcoms. Peter Tolan also wrote for Home Improvement, Murphy Brown, The Larry Sanders Show, co-created Rescue Me. He co-wrote Analyze This and Analyze That.
Yep.
So like
comedy royalty, as you say.
yeah, but like sitcom comedy.
Yeah.
And it feels like it. Like this movie definitely feels like it was written by sitcom writers.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it was written by movie comedy writers.
Yeah. I got that. Well, it almost feels like it was written by playwrights, weirdly.
Yeah, there's that. Well, you've got a very intelligent observation about that that I appreciated.
Yeah. Do you want me to get into it, or do you want to kind of set up the movie first?
I mean, it's
Brendan Fraser.
He plays Elliot Richards,
who's a sad sack.
And Elizabeth Hurley is okay, so yeah, let me set it up really quick.
Go ahead.
So Elliot Richards is a sad sack. He works at a technology. It's in the year 2000. It's like a year after Office Space, but it feels kind of the same.
Well, I almost said Orlando Bloom. Orlando Jones is in it, which is funny because he's in Office Space.
I saw someone made the case at one point. I can't remember where I saw it. Some like YouTube video essay just about how every movie in the late 90s was all about like rebelling against cubicle culture.
Yeah,
which
sure.
Kind of that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So, and this is just another one of those. So
Yeah.
he works at a like tech support place, and he is the most awkward person, kind of like almost a bad person, you might say.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of shitty, and his coworkers don't like him because he's really awkward and really kind of cruddy. And the thing we find out about him, in addition to the fact that all his coworkers can't stand him, is that he is in love with Frances O'Connor,
Yes.
playing Allison Gardner,
Yep.
who also works there. And
Yes.
who wouldn't be in love with Frances O'Connor?
She's very beautiful.
Very, very beautiful.
An English rose, you might say.
Is she English?
Yes.
I couldn't tell. She seemed as American as apple pie in this movie.
This is so bad.
It's not great.
It's the worst. She's a good actor.
Yeah.
Like, she's good in all the different scenes. Like, so she's playing the Eleanor Braun part.
We didn't even talk about Eleanor Braun.
Yeah.
Hang on. We got to expound on Eleanor Braun. Can I say my favorite thing about Eleanor Braun in the original?
Yes.
I said we were going to talk about her.
Yeah.
She is, and I say this very intentionally, she is allowed and encouraged to be just as funny as Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
Yeah, she's very
in the
funny.
movie, because I feel like that's the thing about women in comedy is I think there's a lot of guys in comedy who don't like the ladies to be as funny as they are.
Yeah.
And that has traditionally been the thing. And she plays so many different characters so beautifully and is so game and so into it and makes every single scene work. She's incredible in the movie and shows just as much range as Dudley Moore does and in the movie. And I think it is worth talking about. And I've mentioned it, and I'm sorry I forgot about you, Eleanor. I'm really sorry, but I've talked about you now.
Yeah.
You're so good.
She's still alive. She's like 83.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's great. Also famously pretty. Like
Yeah.
in a sort of a different way, very regal way.
Yeah.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She became an extremely beautiful, like, older woman. She just has quite the bone structure. I like that I'm objectifying Eleanor Braun, 83 years old.
I'm glad you're doing it. If you
fine.
didn't, I would have.
It's fine. So anyway, Frances O'Connor plays
Also very pretty.
Also very pretty. Plays the Eleanor Braun part. She's no Eleanor Braun, but like she's good in all the different scenes.
Yeah.
She doesn't. I would not say she exhibits as much range as Eleanor Braun does. She's always sort of the same. But I will say her American accent is one of the worst that I've heard.
It's just unfortunate because
Yeah.
it's never. I never blame the actor.
No.
but it sucks because it's easy to blame them.
Yeah.
and we shouldn't because it's not their problem. It's preparation.
I mean, okay. I'm just gonna
go for it.
I'm just gonna elephant in the room.
Yeah.
There's an elephant in the room.
Brendan Fraser is a treasure, and he's so good in this movie.
He's really funny in this movie. He's so funny. All of the scenes that are sort of just him doing stuff, I thought I wouldn't enjoy that because I was like, oh, it's like they're going to just put the camera on him and let him go, and it's not going to be enjoyable, and it's not going to be funny. He's really funny. He exhibits a ton of range in all of these different characters, and they even like make him up in different ways.
The makeup's really good.
Yeah,
in it.
in like a way that they didn't really do with Dudley Moore. They actually like really kind of do, I don't know, prosthetics and wigs and like all kinds of different
forced
things.
perspective.
Yeah,
they do everything.
They do everything.
They give him the Gandalf treatment, and they make him tall because he wants to be a basketball player, so he's huge.
He is really funny. Sometimes you forget how good Brendan Fraser is as an actor.
I never do, but I understand what you're saying.
He's wonderfully funny in this.
Is that the elephant in the room?
No, that is not the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, I think, is Elizabeth Hurley playing the devil. I think they cast her for her appearance more so than her acting. So she is also British. She is playing British.
Thank God for that.
But I'm just gonna say the note that I wrote down, even though it's not very nice. Her acting is so bad that it makes it sound like someone's doing a bad British accent. And Frances O'Connor's acting is perfectly fine, but her American accent is terrible. So like both of those things together is not a great combination.
And there has to be one scene where Elizabeth Hurley is talking to Brendan Fraser, where the devil is talking to Elliot, but she's doing the thing where she can like do anybody's voice because she's the devil. She's Lucifer. And she's doing Frances O'Connor's voice.
Right.
But the problem is it makes her American accent sound even worse because it's coming out of Elizabeth Hurley's face.
Yeah, there was a lot of I've been doing things.
Yeah.
Like
the R's are very inconsistent.
It's not consistent.
It's your classic not good American accent.
Yeah, it's really truly like not great. And the other thing is like we don't know much about her. I mean, I guess we don't really know much about Eleanor Braun's character, but I feel like we know more about her. You know why? Because they don't have like the little interstitial scenes showing what she's doing.
Yeah.
Like in his absence, she's only this like imaginary figure in his dream sequences. So we don't really know like that her life is going on without him, or even that like she's a real person. Anyway, did you want to get into like what his wishes are? Because that's like the meat of the movie, right? It's the setup is really kind of the same. First of all, there's no like unfortunate suicide joke, so that's good.
Yes.
He does sort of run into the devil. They're at like a bar and he just kind of meets her. They do the same joke about like wish for something. Okay, I want a Big Mac. She walks him to the McDonald's. They take the bus to the McDonald's, which is kind of funny. He has to buy his own Big Mac, and then that comes back at the end that was actually his first wish. Blah, 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 blah. I think someone thought they were being quite clever and maybe even feminist in making the devil be a sexy woman instead of a man, so that, you know, you give a big part to a lady. But I just very much wish they had cast someone who acted good and was funny, like Peter Cook. Because there are women that are good actors and are funny. And I would say Elizabeth Hurley is neither of those things.
She's kind of a comedy black hole.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah. Who, you know, in other movies I could not possibly say, but in this
I think she's really good in Austin Powers because I think the movie works around her.
Yeah.
And the movie uses her abilities the right way.
Sure.
Because it's based on a different. Anyway, that's a whole separate conversation. The only thing, before we get to the wishes, the one thing I will say is there's a choice that is made that I think speaks to how much of this movie felt really old-fashioned to us. Like, it felt like it was made by an older generation of filmmakers.
Which it was.
The part of it that felt weird is in the year 2000, when he sees her in the bar for the first time, we hear Tone Loc's Wild Thing.
Okay.
And that becomes her theme for the rest of the movie. And, like, at least 3 or 4 times during the movie, when we get a scene with the devil, that first, like, guitar chords of Wild Thing start playing.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite of subtle, but it's cringy.
Yeah.
That's the problem I had with it.
Yeah.
It's not anything culturally relevant at the time that the movie came out.
Yeah.
And I did not care for it.
And the movie has other things like that. Like there are cell phones in this movie, but it's not even necessarily like what cell phones were like in 2000.
Yeah.
More like what we thought what what we thought cell phones should be. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's not that the technology has to be accurate in like a devil selling the soul movie, but it just is like it dates it, you know?
Yeah,
Just the way
yeah.
that they use cell phones, I think, dates it quite a bit.
But anyway, let's run through his wishes
Yeah,
a little bit. So wish number 1 is he wants to be rich and powerful.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, probably the funniest scene.
It's one
of the funnier scenes
I
in
like
the
the
movie.
basketball player one, but this one was pretty funny.
That was good too.
Well, the thing about this one is that it actually relaxed me. Up until the wish began, I was turning to you going, this movie is not good.
Yeah.
This movie is bad. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to sit through this. And the wish started and I was like, this is actually quite funny.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like relaxed into like, at least there might be some funny stuff in this movie.
And that's the thing I was always looking forward to, because like I said, this was in the trailer, because
Yeah.
I think it's the funniest joke in the movie, which is the joke about him. He's become like a Colombian drug lord.
Yes, which he does not realize until about 10 minutes into this
Well, he knows
sequence.
he's Colombian.
Yeah.
He doesn't know he's a drug lord until a ways into the
I don't even
sequence.
know if he knows he's Colombian. He knows he's speaking Spanish.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the thing, a guy starts talking to him in his mansion and is speaking Spanish, and he immediately responds, I don't speak Spanish, in Spanish.
Yeah.
And then it's the scene of him realizing, oh, I do speak Spanish. I'm not going to explain all the jokes he says, but Brendan Fraser is a treasure, and he delivers the lines beautifully, and it's really, really funny.
It's very funny.
And like all the funniest scenes in the movie, I'm not saying this to be shitty. I promise I'm not. I'm just saying it to be as illustrative as possible. Like all the funniest scenes in the movie, Elizabeth Hurley is not in it.
Correct. I would go so far as to say there is no scene that she is in that is funny.
I think I might agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are many scenes that are funny. There are scenes that Frances O'Connor is in that are funny.
Yes.
The basketball player
Yeah.
scene is very funny. I do not think there is any scene that Elizabeth Hurley is in that is funny. Prove
Yeah.
me wrong, but I don't think so.
I can't remember one at the moment.
Yes.
And the scene does go on. One choice they do make in this, because the Sins aren't characters anymore.
Yeah.
But one of the things they do is they made the decision that there'd be like it's weird. The closest thing I can think to is funny thing happened on the way to the forum, where there's like the characters of the Proteans
Yeah.
who are quote unquote actors, but they play lots of parts in the course of the show.
Well, it's Larry Gelbart, you know.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, it makes me think of forum. In the movie, his like 4 coworkers.
Like in The Wizard of Oz, right? That like the farmhands are also
And you
the
were there,
Tin
and you
Man
were- yes.
yeah, the Tin Man
Yep.
and the Scarecrow. Like that's exactly what it is. And you were there, and you were there, and you were there.
That's a much better one.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Classic movie reference.
So the thing they decide is that he's got these 4 friends, one of whom, by the way, you were like,
I was like,
I
how do I
know
I
her.
know her? How do I know her? And you went to IMDb or whatever, and you were like, I know how you know her. And I said, just tell me her name. And you said Miriam Shore. And I said, I know who Miriam Shore is. She was Yitzhak and Hedwig in The Angry Inch. And you were like, correct.
correct. That is what you know her from, and I
Yes.
knew you would. So the thing that they do with these 4 characters, Orlando Jones and Toby Huss and Miriam Shore, they are in all of the wishes as different characters in the wishes.
Yep.
So they have to show some comedic range,
Which-
because they have to play lots of characters, and
Yeah.
honestly,
They're
they
pretty funny.
do.
Yeah.
Like, Toby Huss is one of those guys, like, I'm a Toby Huss fan. I like when Toby Huss shows up in things.
Sure.
He's very funny, and he's very funny in this movie. So is Orlando Jones. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff in this movie with them.
Yeah.
The Colombian drug lord sequence is very long.
Yeah.
It does go on.
But it does establish like he's made a wish and clearly it's going wrong on him because he is married to Frances O'Connor. She hates him, but
Yep.
she hates him and is having an affair with her teacher or whatever.
Yeah, they kind of combine things
Yeah,
in this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So-
The one decision they make in this movie is that, unlike the other one where Stanley is just in the wish, Elliot's never really in the wish from the beginning. He
He's
definitely
like,
in every,
oh, what's happening?
but like it goes back and forth. Like when he's the drug lord, he spends a long time going like, who am I and where am
That's
I
what
and
I
what's
mean.
going on?
Yeah.
But then when he's the basketball player, he's just the
Yeah.
character.
And the other thing that they choose to do is that the devil is not a character in any or most of
No.
them, which I think is an excellent choice
Well,
because these scenes are
yes.
quite funny, and she's not in them.
If I was giving notes on the script, I would have said the devil should have been there.
Yes.
But if I'm giving notes on the edit, I would
Correct.
say you've made the
You've
right
made the right
choice.
choice. Oh, one other thing. Speaking of 2000s technology, he does not blow a raspberry to get out of the wish.
No, he
has
doesn't.
he has a pager,
A numeric pager.
and he pages the devil.
And what number is it? I can't quite remember.
He's 666.
I don't know that the setup that it's 666 is good enough to make the punchline. Because if you only look at it as a joke, it's not funny.
No, it's not funny.
But if you only look at it as a setup to when he's the idiot basketball player and he can't remember what the number
it's
is,
still not that
I
funny.
also still think it's not funny.
Still not funny. All right,
Never really works.
keep going.
Then he wants to be really sensitive.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God. This is where I started taking notes.
This one's pretty great. So he's just this absolute. What did you say? You attacked me, and I did not care for it.
I asked you if you felt seen.
No, you didn't. You said, this
This
is you, which is a way more of an attack than do you feel seen?
Well, the line that I was responding to was, have I done or said anything to make you feel less good about you?
It's a really good scene. But they're on a beach, and he just cries at everything because he's overly sensitive.
And he cries at everything. Well, that was the thing that I think you
Yeah.
saw yourself in.
That was the thing you saw me in.
No, I saw
and
you
then
in-
I agreed.
No, I wasn't even talking about the crying. I was talking about the very sensitive thing that he asks her.
I appreciate that.
All right.
So that scene was... The scene is not great.
It's not great, but he's pretty funny in
very
it.
funny
Yeah.
in it, which is true for most of the movie.
There are dogs named Peter and Dudley in that scene. Oh, I keep saying Raquel
Oh,
Welch.
she is.
She does show up.
Elizabeth
she has
Hurley
basically
is in that scene.
a cameo in that scene. She's walking dogs, and their names are Peter and Dudley, which
was
is very cute.
Very, very cute.
And also, I think they were both dead by that time, so it was
The
nice.
dogs?
No, I mean that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore both tragically did not
Dudley
live
Moore
to be
lived.
particularly old.
Dudley Moore was alive when this movie came out.
Was he?
He died
now?
in the 2000s.
Okay, well, God bless him.
Okay, so I'm honestly trying to remember what all the wishes are, and I can't remember what they all are.
It doesn't matter. We don't owe anyone like a beat by beat analysis of this movie.
There is one more that is very funny, which, there's the gay panic one.
Oh, wait.
There is some uncomfortable gay panic in this run.
Was there gay panic?
Yeah, remember where he says he wants to be like really well spoken and really intelligent?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene where he goes to the party and she's
And he's
there
an
and he's really
author, and she's
smart. He has
into
a
it.
fake nose, but I couldn't quite tell
And
because
then he
it's
goes
very
home,
subtle.
and his partner is in bed, and he's like, "Wait, am I gay?" And then he kisses her, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gay." And it was
Yeah.
that part was actually kind of funny, but there was a sort of a gay panic thing that was not great.
But then there's the basketball player scene. Would you like to explain it?
I can't even explain how funny it is. It's just like this. He's playing this very tall. He literally just says, "I wish I was a basketball player."
Yeah.
And he's playing this very tall basketball player, and like it's almost like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Like it's very simple humor,
Yeah.
which is that he's speaking in catchphrases like, "Well, you just went out and played our game and give 110%, and you know you did let the chips fall where they may," and it was just really, and he's sweating like he's getting really, he's getting like
That's
wetter
what it
and
was.
wetter.
It was the sweating,
Like, yeah, it's just
coupled
very,
with all of it that
like,
was really good.
Very classic physical comedy, which I can't describe, but it was very funny. And then, it was a small penis joke that
lost me.
She's very into him, and she's like, "I just want to go back and see your
Big dick. I mean, that's essentially what she's saying,
And-
except she's using euphemisms.
And he like looks in his towel, and he's like, "Oh no!"
And she sees it, and she's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
never mind."
Yeah, which that part did not work at all. But like the character was super funny. I don't know. I just really thought something about it tickled me.
I mean, the thing about it is that Brendan Fraser is a treasure.
He's very funny.
So then, by the end of it, we get to the end. He's stuck with his last wish because he thinks he has two more.
Right.
But it turns out he only has one more because it turns out the Big Mac counted.
There you go.
And he ends up going to jail because he goes to a church and he ends up talking to a priest, and the priest has him arrested because he's saying he sold his soul to the devil. None of it totally works
This part
for me.
kind of lost. I was a little lost.
This is where in the prison cell he meets this character who is a very it's an
He's
unfortunate,
very wise. Yeah, he's
it's-
the wise black man.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate because it's it's the magical black man.
Right.
And turns out he is God, of course, but he gives him some advice. And what he learns is because in the 90s Harold Ramis version, it needs to represent something, and he needs to learn something that is appropriate for the philosophy that we're exploring.
Yeah.
Which is not true, because in the original one, he doesn't learn anything. He gets to his last wish. He wants to get out of it, and he can't, but then the devil gives him his soul back anyway.
Right.
For a joke. In this one, though, the devil wants him to use his last wish, and he won't because he's learned that the wishes don't work, and he just uses his last wish and says, "I wish for Allison to be happy."
Yes.
He uses it to be selfless.
Yes.
And-
And then he's released from whatever thing because there's a clause that says if someone commits an act of selflessness, they get their soul back or whatever.
Right. And then the movie ends, and we get some things that kind of wrap stuff up, but maybe if it was starting to move to a place where it was going to be satisfying, it became a little unsatisfying for
Yeah,
us.
we like get a little coda where he's back to his normal life, and he sees her going into work, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to have dinner?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm dating someone, but thank you." And he's like, "Ah,
And
okay."
and then he says the sweetest thing that you can say in a situation. Do you want to do a quick role play of
Yeah.
that?
Sure. Wait, who am I playing?
You're him. So
Okay.
you're the man coming up to me. I'm
Hey,
the very
I've seen you around, and I just thought maybe we could get to know each other a little better. Are you free tonight?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm seeing someone.
Oh, okay. Well, if things don't work out with him, I'd be very interested.
Oh, that's a super shitty thing to say to me. Why would you say that? I'm really happy. Why would you say such an awful thing to me?
No, what she does say, in fact, is, "Oh, thank you."
That was really sweet.
yeah.
And we just both got really angry because it's not a sweet thing to
It's a
say.
horrible thing
It's a
to
super,
say.
super shitty thing to say.
Awful.
And then he gets
And then he gets,
violent.
like the guys that are always making fun of him. Like some guys making fun of him because he's kind of mockable and his behavior how it used to be, and he like gets all up in his face, and everyone respects him after that, which is weird. And then he's like, okay, so this is how the movie ends. He's like going home, and he sees this young woman like moving in next door, and she's like, "Oh, you must be my next door neighbor. Maybe you could give me a hand. I don't know." And she turns around, and it turns out it's Frances O'Connor, but it's just like a totally different person.
Yeah, she's not Allison. She's Nicole
She's
now.
Nicole. I think the moral we're meant to understand is like, oh, this person's like they have interests in common, and like she's way better for him, and blah blah blah. And like the fact that she's played by the same actor was only confusing. If it had been a different person, I think I would have understood that moral significantly better. Like, oh, you've been lusting after this person that's not good for you, but there's this new person that might be better for you that you share interest in common with.
But your reward is that they look exactly the same.
Yeah, that was the part that was confusing. Like, you get the reward that she's beautiful. Like, that doesn't. I don't understand. I don't understand.
I mean, the way I read it, because then we get that scene at the end where you see the devil and God playing chess, like on the beach.
Mhm.
It is the thing we never really mentioned is that it is very specifically a San Francisco movie.
Yeah, it is very. It's the San Francisco's Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yep. So they're playing chess on the waterfront, and we get Elliot and Nicole kind of going off into the sunset together, and it felt to me textually that she looks like she was placed there in reality to be a reward for him being selfless.
Yes, correct.
That's what it felt like to me.
Which
That's what they were saying.
People aren't rewards, so that's not satisfying.
It would have been way more satisfying if he didn't become creepy, didn't become violent, and met someone who didn't look like the person he had been lusting after for a while, but actually liked her for her personality.
That would have been great.
What I'm saying is, not every movie can be Groundhog Day.
There it is.
Yeah, there's stuff in it that's great because Brendan Fraser, again, checking my notes, remains a treasure.
Yeah.
But then there's a whole bunch of
There's
other
just
stuff
some-
that's looks like Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we had just rewatched Waiting for Guffman. That was our other Valentine's Day movie, and just some of the level of acting just reminded me of the play in Waiting for Guffman. Like, it was
Like Catherine O'Hara
yeah,
in
it
the
was
play,
like,
yeah.
that ain't no feed storage bin. Like, it really was that level of like community theater mock acting.
It didn't work.
Oh, it didn't work.
Quadrants can be so easy.
Yeah.
It's like a breath of fresh air.
That's beautiful.
Hey, do you think the creators of 2000's Bedazzled cared about the original?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure they did.
course
yeah,
they
I'm sure
did.
that Harold Ramis like grew up on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Like the fact that they made it, I think shows that they cared
yeah,
about it.
otherwise why would you? Why would you bother?
Was it successful?
I would not say so. Despite Brendan Fraser's, as you say, treasure status,
Mhm.
I did not find it a satisfying movie, especially the conclusion really ruined it for me.
Yeah, I feel like unfortunately it will always be the lesser remake of a better original that itself also has issues.
Yeah.
But like kind of stacking up against it, people are forced to choose.
Yeah.
And like, no, the original's a classic and this one's a pale imitation, when really it's like, no, they're actually, both of them are pretty funny.
Yeah.
But the original's better.
All right. We're getting in under an hour and a half. Amazing.
I'm so happy right now.
Okay.
We're gonna get, just so everyone knows, it's not like every episode is gonna be like this forever. Our other episodes are gonna be extensive and focused, not like today's.
Highly researched.
But if you stayed to the end, we're very happy that you did.
Thank you.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapter Parish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast.
Just gotta go out there and give 110%. Let chips fall where they may. I thought it was funny.
He's a treasure.
He's great.
He's a treasure.
Bye.